This woman says that Baltasar Ngonga's wife told her to keep an eye on him, just in case he was cheating, since the woman worked closely with him. But in the end, it was Baltasar who started flirting with her. Listen to how it all turned out for her.
I never expected to be pulled into someone else's marriage, especially not Baltasar Ngonga's. He was my closest friend, my colleague, my neighbor. We worked together at one of the top financial institutions in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea. He was sharp, well-connected, and carried himself with a quiet confidence that drew people in, including me, once upon a time. But our friendship was never romantic. We were just solid. Like brother and sister, if anything. His wife Mary Ngonga and I had grown close over the years too. She was elegant, reserved, and always kind to me. We shared more than a few late-night conversations over wine at their place when Baltasar was working late or traveling. So when she called me one Saturday evening, her voice trembling, I knew something was wrong. "Can we meet?" she asked. "Alone." We met at a quiet rooftop cafe overlooking the water. The sun was setting, but Mary looked like she hadn't slept in days. "I need your help," she said. "I think Baltasar is seeing someone else." My heart sank. "Mary, are you sure?" "I'm not sure of anything anymore," she said. "He comes home late. He won't touch me. He guards his phone like it's his life. I feel it deep in my gut. But I need to know, and you're the only one who's close enough to him to find out." It felt like betrayal. But it also felt like truth. So I agreed. I didn't go digging through his drawers or hacking his phone. I just paid attention. At the office, I noticed the calls he took in hushed tones, the way he always had an excuse to stay late. One evening, he told me he was heading to a client meeting. I offered to drop him off. He declined. So I followed him. He drove out to a sleek apartment complex in a quieter part of town. I parked out of sight. 15 minutes later, a woman stepped out, tall, well-dressed, and definitely not Mary. She greeted him with a kiss that left no room for misinterpretation. The next day, I went to Mary's house. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. The pain in her eyes when I nodded was more than enough. "Thank you," she whispered, holding back tears. That's all I needed to hear. Now Baltasar still laughs with me at work like nothing ever happened. He has no idea what I know, or that I was the one who helped Mary see the truth. But our friendship feels hollow now. Like a beautiful shell hiding a lie. In a city like Malabo, where image is everything, truth comes at a high cost. And for women like Mary and me, sometimes the strongest thing we can do is stop pretending we don't see what's right in front of us. It wasn't until weeks later that I saw it with my own eyes. It was a Wednesday, humid and slow. The kind of day that clings to your skin and makes everything feel heavier. I'd stayed late, finishing up reports in the quiet hum of the office after hours. Most of the team had cleared out by 6, and I assumed Baltasar had left too. He'd mentioned a board dinner earlier. But as I walked past his office on my way out, I noticed the door was slightly ajar and the lights were still on. At first, I wasn't curious. I was tired. But then I heard a laugh, soft, intimate, unmistakably flirtatious. A woman's voice. I paused. Then I pushed the door open, just enough to see. There they were. Baltasar, pressed close to her, Aline, one of our junior analysts. Young, smart, ambitious. Too ambitious maybe. Her hands were tangled in his tie, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw, their lips meeting in a kiss so deliberate it felt like a slap. I froze. It wasn't just betrayal, it was casual, like they'd done this before many times. Like this was normal for them now. Neither of them saw me. I didn't say anything. I just backed away, slowly, heart pounding like a drum in my throat. The hallway felt endless as I walked out, the weight of what I'd seen sinking in with every step. The next morning, Aline greeted me like nothing happened. Same bright smile, same cheery voice. Baltasar did too, offering me coffee like he always did. I took it, nodding, pretending I hadn't watched him dismantle his marriage one kiss at a time. But something in me changed that day. It wasn't just about Mary anymore. It was about the silence, the way we are all taught to look away, to protect the powerful, to swallow the truth for the sake of appearances. I was tired of pretending, tired of playing along. So I started writing it all down. Every lie, every late night, every time I saw Aline slip into his office and close the door behind her. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet. But I knew I couldn't carry the weight of their secrets forever. Because eventually, silence becomes complicity. And I was done being complicit. It was barely 2 weeks after the Aline incident when it happened again, only this time, it was worse. More brazen. Baltasar had been acting untouchable lately. Walking around the office like a man with nothing to lose and everything to gain. I started to wonder if the guilt ever even reached him. Or if he'd buried it so deep beneath charm and ambition that he'd convinced himself none of it mattered. That Friday, the office was buzzing with preparations for the annual internal security audit. The CCTV team had come in for a full system check, hard drives, storage, camera angles, all of it. Baltasar was working late again, of course, offering to oversee the process. I had my own reasons to stay late, mostly curiosity, partly instinct. Something felt off. Around 9:30 p.m., I wandered up to the 3rd floor to print out some documents. The security room was down the hall, its heavy door usually closed. But tonight, it was open just a crack. Enough. I stopped. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I swear I wasn't. But the voices caught my attention. You know these cameras see everything, right? A woman's voice, low and teasing. Then Baltasar, that's what makes it exciting. I stepped closer. And that's when I saw them on the grainy display of the wall of CCTV monitors. One of the screens showed a quiet storage room, dimly lit, and there they were, Baltasar and Amparo, the CCTV systems director. His hands were on her waist. Hers were around his neck. They kissed like they were somewhere far from the office, far from reality, far from the people they were supposed to be. I blinked. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just that he was cheating again. It was the who Amparo wasn't just some random fling. She had access. She knew what every camera in that building saw. She was the eyes of the entire institution. If anyone could erase evidence, cover up, make a scandal vanish, it was her. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just infidelity anymore. It was power. Strategy. He was choosing women who could help him protect his image, control the narrative, keep his secrets safe. Aline, the analyst. Easy to manipulate. Amparo, the CCTV director. Critical to keeping things buried. I left without a word. No confrontation. No drama. I just walked back to my desk, sat down, and stared at my screen. He thought he was untouchable. But he forgot something. I see him. And this time, I'm not just writing it down, I'm keeping the evidence. I don't know when. I don't know how. But the truth always finds a way out. And when it does, Baltasar and Ngonga will finally understand that power built on lies is power borrowed, not owned. It was almost cinematic, the way it all unraveled. A week after I saw Baltasar and Amparo on the CCTV footage, I started getting the sense that something had shifted. He was watching me now, more carefully than before. His greetings at work came with longer pauses, loaded eye contact. His smile lingered a little too long. The air between us had changed taut, like a stretched wire waiting to snap. Then, one Monday morning, he asked me to come into his office. Just the two of us. I walked in, bracing myself. There was a tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. He gestured for me to sit. "We need to talk," he said, locking the door behind him. That's never a good sign. He didn't waste time. "Amparo showed me something," he said. "Last Friday. A clip from the hallway camera. You were watching the monitors. You saw us." I didn't flinch. "So?" He studied me. "Why didn't you say anything?" I leaned back. "Because I didn't need to. You've made it pretty clear who you are." There was silence. Not the angry kind. The dangerous kind. And then, something unexpected happened. He smiled. Slow. Calculated. Like a man who just realized the rules of the game had changed. "I underestimated you," he said quietly. "I always knew you were sharp, but I didn't think you were watching." I stayed silent. "I've been thinking about you a lot," he continued. "Even before this, before any of it. You always had this way of seeing people. Really seeing them." That's when I realized what was happening. He wasn't just confronting me. He was trying to turn the tables. Baltasar had always been strategic. Women were chess pieces to him, and this was his next move: pull me closer. Neutralize the threat. Blur the lines until I couldn't tell if I was part of the problem or the solution. And then he said it. "I think we've always had something unspoken. I'd like to explore that. Just us. No lies." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was textbook: the audacity. The manipulation wrapped in charm. But here's the twist: I didn't walk out. I said, "All right. Let's see where this goes." Because now, I wasn't just observing him. I was inside the storm. And if Baltasar thought he could seduce me into silence, he had no idea who he was dealing with. This wasn't love. This wasn't even lust. This was war. And I had just become his most dangerous opponent, yet because now, I had a front row seat. And I was still watching. Baltasar used me. It was a Saturday when Baltasar said he wanted to get out of the city for a while. The way he said it was casual, like it was nothing. But nothing with Baltasar was ever just that. He picked me up just after sunset. No driver, no suit, just him behind the wheel of his black Prado, wearing a linen shirt open at the collar and that signature comb that made people trust him even when they shouldn't. We drove in silence for a while, the lights of Malabo fading behind us as the road turned narrow and quiet, winding toward the hills. The village hotel sat on a bluff overlooking the water, a quiet, hidden place known more for its discretion than its luxury. No one came here unless they didn't want to be found. The room he booked was simple, elegant. One bed. A balcony with a view of the ocean. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need to. After dinner, we sat out on the balcony, the warm air thick with salt and secrets. He poured wine into 2 glasses and handed me one, his fingers grazing mine just long enough to make it intentional. "I wasn't lying," he said quietly, "about the way I see you." I looked at him, and for once, I didn't see the polished executive or the calculating man I'd come to study so closely. I saw someone tired. Someone who needed to believe that love or something like it could still save him. And maybe I needed to believe it too. That night, he kissed me like he had nowhere else to be. No secrets to hide. No other woman waiting in the shadows. Just me. His hands were careful at first, then sure, like he was memorizing every curve, every breath, every hesitation. We didn't sleep for hours. Every time I started to drift, he'd pull me close again, whispering things in my ear that made me forget what I knew about him. What I'd seen. He kissed me all night. Like he meant it. Like it mattered. And maybe, in that moment, it did. But somewhere between the taste of his mouth and the softness of his touch, I kept wondering. Was this real? Or was this just another move on a board I didn't even know I was still playing on? By sunrise, he was already awake, sipping coffee by the window. When I stirred, he looked at me and said, "You and I, we could be powerful together." I didn't answer. I just smiled. Because I knew what he meant. And I knew something else too. Power built on desire is just as fragile as power built on lies. And I was no longer just a pawn in his game. I was becoming the queen. That night unfolded like a slow-burning confession. Every time Balthasar touched me, it felt like he was trying to say something without words, something buried beneath years of control and calculated charm. He wasn't just reaching for skin. He was reaching for something deeper, something human, something fragile. He moved with intention. His hands were warm and sure, but never forceful. There was a tension between us, desire, yes, but also something more complicated. I could feel him studying me as much as touching me, like he wanted to know how far I would let him in. And I didn't stop him. Not because I was caught up in romance, but because I needed to see who he was when no one else was watching. The lies couldn't hide behind his voice, his charm, or his expensive suits here. This was raw. This was honest in its own twisted way. He kissed me with a kind of hunger I hadn't expected, not greedy, but deliberate. Like he had waited for this. Like it mattered. His body spoke where his words always failed. And for hours, we forgot the city, the secrets, the betrayal. But underneath the heat, I could feel something called a strategy. Even in his tenderness, Balthasar was calculated. He wasn't just making love, he was claiming something. Testing whether I was still an observer or if I had crossed fully into his world. And I let him believe I had. I let him believe he'd won. Because in that moment, I needed him to trust me. I needed him to feel safe enough to show his real self, unguarded. And he did. He slept with his arm around me, breathing evenly, his guard finally down. I watched him sleep as dawn crept in through the curtains. He thought he had conquered me. But I wasn't conquered. I was collecting, watching, remembering. Because love wasn't what I came for. Truth was. And I was getting closer. It was almost surreal how fast the shift came, how quickly tenderness could become a weapon in Balthasar's hands. We had returned to the city the next day. At work, he was the same charming, composed man he'd always been, slipping back into his role like nothing had happened. But something in his eyes had changed. Sharper. Colder. Like a door had quietly shut behind me. A few days later, he called me into his office. Again. Same smile. Same locked door. He reached into his drawer and placed his phone on the desk, screen lit. He tapped it, flipping through images, photos of me and him in that village hotel room. Kissing. Half-dressed. Close enough to ruin me. He didn't look up at me when he said it. I thought you should know I took these. You were beautiful that night. My throat tightened, but I stayed still. Stillness had become my armor. Then he looked at me. If your husband saw this, what do you think he'd say? That was the moment I understood he never wanted me, he wanted control. All of this, every kiss, every whisper was about leverage. About power. I told you we could be powerful together, he said. But if you cross me, I can make your world burn. And just like that, he sent the photos. He did it while looking me dead in the eye, like it was a test to see if I would beg, cry, break. I didn't. He thought he was playing a game of exposure. But he had no idea that I had already made peace with my own mistakes. My husband and I, we weren't strangers to distance. Emotionally or otherwise. What Balthasar didn't realize was that the damage was already done, long before the photos. But still it hurt. Not the betrayal. Not the threat. The disappointment. That I had let myself believe, even for a moment, that he could be something other than this. He thought he'd taken the upper hand. But he had just made a fatal mistake. He showed me what he feared most: a woman who can survive the fire he thinks will destroy her. And now I was done watching. It was time to act. The weight of the photos, the threats, the lies, they all became a suffocating cloud hanging over me. It was clear now, Balthazar thought he could control me with his manipulations. He was mistaken. But it wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Mary, his wife. She had to know. The truth had been a shadow in her life for too long, and I could no longer be the one to pretend I didn't see it. I called her. Her voice was steady on the other end of the line, like she had already known something was coming. "What's going on?" she asked, her words clipped but calm. "I saw the photos, Mary," I said, my heart heavy. "I saw them and I knew I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see the truth. Balthazar, he's been lying to you. He's been with other women. Aline, Amparo, and me." There was a silence that stretched between us, and for a moment I thought she might hang up. Then she spoke, her voice breaking through the stillness. I knew something was off, but I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to believe it. "I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I didn't want to hurt you, but I can't stand by while he keeps playing both of us. I appreciate you telling me, but I just need to think. I don't know what to do with this. What do I even do now? I'm here if you need me," I said, feeling the weight of the words. She didn't respond at first, but I could hear her breathing, the deep, quiet pain of a woman who had suspected the truth but never had the courage to face it. And then, she simply said, "Thank you for being honest with me." I hung up, feeling a strange mixture of relief and guilt. I had told her. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more I needed to do. Something that didn't involve letting Balthazar win. But when I got home later that night, everything changed. My husband, Thomas, was sitting at the kitchen table, his eyes narrowed, a folder open in front of him. The moment I walked in, I could feel the tension in the room. "You need to explain something to me," he said, his voice cold. "What the hell is going on with you and Balthazar?" I blinked, the sudden confrontation catching me off guard. "What do you mean?" He shoved the folder toward me. Inside were printed copies of the photos Balthazar had sent, the ones that had been taken in that hotel room. They were crisp, undeniable. But the look on Thomas's face, it wasn't anger. It was disbelief. "You tell me you didn't sleep with him," Thomas said, his voice barely controlled. "But I don't see how this isn't you, with him. Kissing him like that." I swallowed hard, my throat thick. "Thomas, I didn't." "Then why do I have these?" he interrupted, his finger pointing at the photos. "Why is it that every time I ask, you're so defensive, so evasive? If you didn't sleep with him, then why are these here?" I stood there, trying to find the words, but they felt useless. How could I explain the complexity of everything I had been through with Balthazar, how the lines had blurred and twisted until I didn't know who I was anymore? "I didn't sleep with him," I said finally, my voice shaking. "But it doesn't matter what I say, does it? You already think I did. These photos, he's using them against me. Against us. And I can't undo what happened. But I need you to believe me." Thomas didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared at the photos again, his face hardening, the trust between us cracking slowly. "I want to believe you," he said quietly, "but you don't make this easy." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I could see the doubt in his eyes, the disbelief that I hadn't been truthful with him before. And as much as I wanted to tell him everything, that I'd never crossed that line with Balthasar, that I had been just as much a victim as Mary, that I had done what I thought was right, Tomas wasn't hearing it. I didn't sleep with him, I said again, my voice firm despite the ache in my chest. But you have to trust me. I'm telling you the truth. Everything. The whole story. But as I looked at him, I knew I was losing him. The doubt was like a shadow in the room, creeping between us, wrapping its fingers around everything I'd ever known. I don't know if I can, Tomas whispered, his eyes tired. You've kept secrets from me. And now I'm supposed to believe this is all some kind of misunderstanding. I couldn't find the words to convince him. I couldn't undo the damage that had been done both by Balthasar's manipulations and my own inability to stop playing the game. So I just stood there, feeling the walls closing in, knowing that no matter how many truths I told, it wasn't enough to restore the trust I'd lost. In that moment, I realized that sometimes, even when you tell the truth, it isn't enough to make someone believe you. And that, more than anything, was the most painful part.